Hi, my name is JasonMorrell, and in this video I'm going to show you how to recognize and fix all the things that can go wrong with multi-level numbering. I'm going to cover quite a lot here, and these are actual questions that people have asked. So I'm going to treat it like a quick fire round and move through pretty fast. To save you some time, check out the notes below the video to find the specific problem that you might be having. And if you can't find your question, post it in the comments below. If you haven't watched my previous videos on multi-level lists, you'll find the details of those in the notes beneath the video. Okay, first cab off the rank. How do I modify my existing multi-level numbering instead of creating it from scratch every time? Here's a sample document, and the standard 1.1, 1.1.1 style numbering has been applied to it through the multi-level list icon. Now firstly, if you need to modify this at any point, you don't have to recreate it from scratch. Whenever you create a brand new multi-level list or edit or modify a multi-level list, you need to go to this icon here. So when we click this icon, there's nothing anywhere to say edit or modify. Instead, it's just very counterintuitive. You come down to where it says define new multi-level list, and that brings up the existing settings, which then enable you to modify or edit them. Once you've made your changes and you click OK, the changes will take effect on the text here. Okay, number 2. My numbering goes to 1.1 instead of to 2.1. How do I fix that? Here's an example I created. Now the first section works well. It goes 1 to 1.1, 1.2, but 2 goes to 1.1, 1.2, as does 3 goes to 1.1, 1.2. So there's obviously something wrong in the definition. I always make sure my cursor is on a top level item, then go to the multi-level list icon at the top here and choose define new multi-level list. Now level 1's working correctly, so I don't need to change anything there. Let's go to level 2 and check the settings. Now here, it's fairly obvious what's going on once you know what you're looking for. And that is that the first one doesn't have a grey shading behind it, which means it's a fixed entity. It's never going to change from saying 1. The grey one that follows it is the one that does change. So to fix this, I'm just going to wipe it out and build it from scratch. So on the second level, we need to pick up the number from level 1, followed by a dot, and then use the 1, 2, 3 style system for the second level. So notice how both of these ones have a grey shading behind them, which means they're both adaptable. They're both going to change as the numbering continues throughout the document. And when we click OK here, see how section 2 and section 3 now have correct numbering. Number 3. This is very similar to number 2. My numbering goes 1, then 1.1 to 1 and then 1.1 again, instead of 1 to 1.1 and then 2 to 2.1. So let's look at an example. So this time it's the top level numbering that's fixed and doesn't change as it should. And while we're at it, we should also check the second level numbering to make sure that's good as well. So with the cursor at the top here, let's click the multi-level list icon, choose define new multi-level list, and let's take a look. So we're on level 1, and straight away we can see that this does not have a grey shading behind the number 1 here. So in the same way I did it last time, let's wipe that out, and just for this top level, choose the 1, 2, 3 style system, followed by a dot, or whatever else you want to use there. Moving to level 2, we can see that the first number 1 again doesn't have the grey shading behind it. So there's actually 2 things wrong on this one. So let's rebuild this from scratch. First of all, choosing the number from level 1, followed by a dot, and then the numbering system for this level again is 1, 2, 3. Click OK. All the numbering resolves itself correctly. So once you get into the swing of things, you shouldn't make those kind of elementary mistakes, or if somebody's handed you a document with those mistakes in them, they should be easy to spot and then rectify. Okay, number 4. Another variation on the theme, another question that's been asked. My numbering goes 1.2.1 to 1.3.1 instead of 1.1.2, 1.1.3 and so on. So let's take a look at another example. Now this example has 3 levels of numbering. Looking at the red text here, you can see that the second and third digits have been transposed. So the second one should say 1.1.2, the third one should say 1.1.3. So let's take a look at the numbering definition. So clicking the multi-level list icon, define the multi-level list, and let's take a look at number 3 or level 3. Now we've got 3 number 1s down the bottom, each with a grey shading behind it, which is a good start. That means that everything's adaptable and will change. But as we can see over here, the last 2 number 1s are in the wrong order. So let's just wipe this out. Back to the first number 1, which is correct. So the 1 dot. Then we say include the level number from level 2, followed by another dot. And then the number style for this level is going to be 1, 2, 3. Now because it already was 1, 2, 3, it doesn't let me add it in directly. So I need to just say nothing and then switch it back to 1, 2, 3. And that puts it in this box here, which is what we need. Then we click OK, and we can see that the numbering here has rectified. Number 5. How can I insert a tab jump in my number definition? Now tab jumps are interesting because they work and then they don't work, which is a bit of a problem. In this example we have a 2-level numbering system, a top level and a lower level. So let's take a look at the number definition by clicking the multi-level list icon, then define the multi-level list, and let's move down to level 2 and wipe out what's here. So instead of the 1.1, 1.2, I want to follow that with a 1A. Now to do that, I include the level number from level 1, and then rather than just putting A straight afterwards, if I put a control tab, it actually moves across a set distance, the tab definition distance, which is 1.27 centimeters or half an inch. Now, whatever follows next, let's say we put a ABC system, that distance is a set distance. However, when you close the document and reopen, Microsoft replaces that tab definition with a regular space. So even though it works once, it doesn't work once it's been closed and reopened. So it's as good as useless. Okay, so I don't recommend using this tool if you've heard about it or seen it done. It's a bug and it doesn't work beyond the first time. So what I do is instead of using that control tab to insert the tab definition, I just put a straightforward space in and then work it out that way instead. Number 6. I want headings like acknowledgements and dedication in the preliminary section of a book to look like the other level 1 headings in the document and appear in the table of contents but to remain unnumbered. How do I do that? Here's an example. I've got a space at the top ready to put my table of contents. I've then got the main document section with a couple of headings that need to be included in the table of contents called acknowledgements and dedication. Then a bit further down we have the proper document content, which starts with the actual heading 1 and the actual heading 2, which is numbered. So in the table of contents we want these 2 numbered headings and these 2 unnumbered headings to appear. These numbered headings use heading 1 currently. So if I just go to say dedication and I apply the heading 1 style to that, so I've got exactly the same formatting, I'm then going to go to the single level numbered icon at the top here and just click it to switch off the numbering. Then I'm going to create a style just for these acknowledgements and dedication, the unnumbered items that need to appear in the table of contents. So with my cursor on the paragraph, I'll go to the Styles gallery, click the More button, click Create a Style, and give this style a name. So let's call it Prelims, as in preliminary headings. Something you have to be careful of when you're creating new styles from existing styles is when you click Modify, check what the style is based on. And at the moment you can see this is based on heading 1. It's always good practice to base every style on either normal or no style. And that way you're working from a set base, you're not working off another style which if that changes will have a chain reaction going forward. So we've got a new style called Prelims, not based on any existing style but still using exactly the same styling as heading 1. Click OK and we can see that Prelims appear in the Styles pane on the right hand side. If you're not sure how to get this pane, you simply click this launcher just here and it displays this pane. Then I go to the Acknowledgements heading and just apply the Prelims style. It looks exactly the same. Then when we go to the table of contents, place the cursor where you want your contents to go. Go to your References tab, Table of Contents, and this time Custom Table of Contents. We can't use one of the existing ones because we need to point it to another heading to pick that up as well. So all these settings can be changed to change the look and the feel of the table of contents. But what's important here is to click the Options button and to check the numbers that apply underneath the TOC level heading and which styles they relate to. So heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, number 1, number 2, number 3, that's pretty standard. But if you come down and find the prelims heading, we can put a number 1 against that as well, which means that heading 1s and prelims both get put in the top level of the table of contents in terms of that structure. So let's click OK and click OK again. And you can see all of that content has appeared in the table of contents, 2 unnumbered and 2 numbered headings. Number 7, asked by a different person but very similar to number 6. I want regular headings in the document, for example 1 introduction, 2 methods, 3 results, to be numbered, but other headings, for example list of abbreviations, table of figures, Appendix A, to be unnumbered. The table of contents must include all the headings. How do I do that? Here's another example. Again, a space for the table of contents at the top, the main section down here which has list of abbreviations, table of figures, Appendix 1, which will be headings and appear in the table of contents as headings as well. And beneath that, the 3 sections that were listed, that's section 1, introduction, number 2, method, number 3, results. I'll go through the process again a little bit quicker this time. So firstly, let's just choose one of these headings that needs to have the same formatting as the numbered headings, but be unnumbered. So I'm going to apply the heading 1, then go to the top here, click the single level numbered icon to switch off the numbering. And then let's create a new style called unnumbered. Click the modify button and make sure that the style is based on no style or normal, and then click OK. And we've now got a new style to play with. I'm then going to select the table of figures and the list of abbreviations and apply the same unnumbered style. So everything looks the same. Then we go to the table of contents and we go to the references at the top, table of contents on the left, custom table of contents down the bottom, leave all the default settings, click options, and just make sure that the unnumbered style has a number 1 against it to be placed at the TOC level 1 in the table of contents. Then click OK and click OK again. And just like we saw in number 6, we've got the unnumbered headings and the numbered headings all appearing as the top level items in the table of contents. Number 8, and this question comes up a lot. My document is huge, my numbering is all over the place, how can I fix it quickly? Well, I'm sorry to say there is no quick solution, you just got to get your head down and go through the process. Let me give an example. This document has been numbered manually by hand. So people have typed in the 1, the 1.1, they've tabbed and spaced between text and numbers, it's all over the place. If you click this little pilcrow here, it'll show all the hidden formatting. The little right arrows there indicate where a tab has been pressed to indent it across the screen, and the dots here indicate where spaces have been pressed to indent it even further. Now this is just a obviously over exaggerated example, but people do this a lot. You can also see that the numbering over here actually has fallen out of sequence somehow, so maybe they've deleted a section or whatever the case might be. So all of this stuff needs to be straightened out by creating a number system that can be used across the whole document and then applying it. So very quickly, I'm going to place my cursor at the top level, at the top item, go to the multi-level list icon and define new multi-level list. Now the 1.1, 1.1.1 style system is actually perfect here, except for the fact that in the document it's indented at each level. That's very quick and easy to change. So on the top level, number 1, we don't need to change anything, except for down the bottom, we align the number on the margin, but the text indent at 1 centimeter. I'll just work with whole numbers to make things simple and easier to remember. And also where it says link level to style, I'm going to choose heading 1. On the second level, down the bottom, I'm going to indent to make the number indented at 1 centimeter, but the text that follows at 2 centimeters. And I'm going to link this to heading 2. Level 3, same deal, down the bottom, indented at 2 centimeters, text indent at 3.5 centimeters. It's a little bit bigger because by this stage you've got 3 digits in play, so things take a bit more space. And link level to style, heading 3. Now the numbering itself is all correct, it's standard numbering. Click OK, And we've now got a system we can start applying using the standard headings over here. So I'll go to the second big heading and apply heading 1. I'll select the 2 lower level headings here and holding Control, the 2 down here as well, and apply the heading 2. And then the 2 that are left, I'll select those there and select those there, again holding Control down and clicking heading 3. Then all that's left to do is to get rid of all the rubbish they put in, like the tabs and the spaces and so on. So here, just place the cursor at the beginning, just backspace until you get back to that first single arrow. And that single arrow there is controlled by the multi-level numbering definition. This one here, backspace again, right back to the last space. Here again, 3 spaces, 3 tabs. And this one here, go back 3 tabs and delete those. Again, the top level, we need to get rid of that. Next level down, get it back to that first arrow, and so on all the way down here. So you can see it's a little bit monotonous and boring, but it's partly your fault for getting there in the first place, eh? But once you've got the definition set up, you can use it and just fix things up really quickly. You just got to go sequentially through your document, first of all applying the settings and then fixing up any clutter that's in the way. In fact, on this last one, this number here needs to go as well, and the same here. So that's the finished product, and that took, what, a minute or two, just to do that a little bit and set up the numbers. Okay, let's look at the next one. Number 9. Pressing tab does not demote to the next level, it just indents the text. Help. Okay, let's take a look at an example. 2 lines of text, very simple. At the top here we've got a heading 1 and a heading 2, which goes 1 to 1.1. So let's just select both of these bits of text and apply heading 1 initially. So let's go to the second line here and place the cursor in front of the second blah. And when we press tab here, you can see it inserts the tab marker, which moves across to the next tab position. So if you're halfway through a bit of text, it will tab at that point, but it won't demote the numbering. Let's backspace there. If I place the cursor in front of the first blah, so this is immediately after the number, and then I press tab, it demotes the text down to level 2, heading 2. So the key lesson there, if you're trying to demote down to another level, is make sure your cursor's at the beginning of the text immediately after the number. If you go to this line 1 and do the correct thing, which is to place the cursor in the right position, and then press tab to try and demote it, it simply moves the whole block of text across one tab position, because you can't go to 1.1 without having a 1. So being the top level, it can't move from that top level, it can't demote itself down, only subsequent headings can be moved down. Number 10. Tab and Shift tab jumps to the next or previous cell in a table rather than demoting or promoting to the next level. Help. Here's a simple table with text in it. With the cursor in the first cell, if I try pressing tab, the idea within a table is that tab moves you to the next cell. So tab, 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 like this, it moves you through the table, across and then down. You can also press Shift and Tab, which moves you backwards through the table to the previous cell. So obviously if you're trying to demote or promote text, this isn't useful. I'm going to select all the cells in the table and apply heading 1. If I select and place the cursor in front of the first blah and try pressing tab again, it moves through the table just like it did before. If I then click the indent button, it indents everything, just like we saw on the previous point, the previous FAQ. Because this is the very first numbered item on the page, so it can't demote itself. It needs to be other stuff below it that gets demoted. So let's promote that again. If we did it on the third one and click the indent button, see how it's demoted down to level 2. Also, if you've got heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, etc. associated with each level, you can just click the appropriate level here and it will demote accordingly. Now it can get a bit messy when you do multi-level numbered lists inside tables, because like I said before, the information gets treated across and then down. So here where we've got 3.1.1 blah, that's actually picked up off the top level heading here to get the 3.1.1. Whereas the 2.1 blah here has piggybacked off the previous entry, which is here, number 2. So if you are going to do this, just be very careful. Number 11. Where do I find multi-level numbering in Word 365? Okay, now there's two versions of Word 365. There's the desktop version that you download and install on your desktop that gives you full Word functionality, the whole gamut. But there's also the online version which is accessed via office.com on your browser. Let me show you that. Word 365 on a browser is a very, very cut down version of what you get on the Word desktop version. As you can see at the top here, it's got fewer ribbons. The toolbar itself is much more sparsely populated. And on the home ribbon here, we've got the bullet icon, the single level numbering icon, but there isn't a multi-level numbered icon, which would be the third one in the list if it existed. So unfortunately, if you're using Word 365 through the browser, you don't have access to multi-level numbering. Number 12. I spent ages creating a multi-level numbering system, clicked out and lost it. Please help. As we saw earlier, if you've created a multi-level numbering system, either chosen a preset one or designed one yourself, you can go back at any time to the multi-level list icon, and it's a bit confusing because the single level multi-level list is the one that's highlighted, but the multi-level list is the one you want, and define new multi-level list. Like I said before, it's very unintuitive. Okay, you need to go to the new multi-level list to edit an existing multi-level list. When you click on this, it brings up all the existing settings and you can make your changes from here. Number 13. I need more than 9 number levels. How do I do that? Well, quick answer, you can't. And the second question should be, why do you need more than 9? I've been working with multi-level numbering for 20 years. I've dealt with the most complex legal documents which go level after level after level, clause after clause, all this kind of stuff. And I've never needed more than about 5 or 6. So when you say I need more than 9, I do not believe you. That would be a super complex document that I wouldn't want to touch. Number 14. How do I get all of my numbered items on the left margin rather than indented? Well, that's a choice. Let me show you. Here's a simple example where we've got 3 levels of numbering. Each level is indented. To get every level flat against the left margin, here's what we do. Place the cursor on the top item, go to the multi-level list icon and define new multi-level list. Now level 1 should already be correct. Okay, it's aligned at 0, that's the number, and the 1 centimeter refers to the text that follows it. If we go to level 2, we need to change whatever's there to also say 0. That means the number is also butted against the left margin, and indent it appropriately. Let's say 1 centimeter again. And then for the third level, again, align it at 0, that's the number, and text indent can either be 2 or maybe 2.5 centimeters, allowing for the fact it's got 3 digits in the number by this point. Click OK, and let's see what it looks like. As we can see, the third level of numbering has indented further than the rest because there wasn't room. So I'm going to make one further change here, clicking back on the top level, click the multi-level list icon and define the multi-level list. I'm just going to allow at every level, I'm going to allow a text indent of 2 centimeters. So that's level 1. Level 2, same thing, 2 centimeters. And level 3, again, 2 centimeters. So now they're all consistent and now they are all in line. Maybe 2 centimeters is slightly too wide, 1.5 might have done it, but you get the idea, you can adjust it as you need to. Number 15. What if I want to apply multi-level numbering to headings and normal paragraphs? The good news is you can apply it to either headings or paragraphs or both. Here's an example that currently uses 3 levels of numbering, all based on or linked to heading 1, heading 2 and heading 3. Let's imagine we're happy with the top level heading that can remain a heading, but the 1.1s and the 1.1.1s and so on, the second and third level, we want to convert to paragraph numbering. Here's the thing, nothing about the multi-level numbered list definition needs to change. The only thing that needs to change is the styling of the second and third levels. So based on the fact that most body text uses Calibri size 11 or something similar to that, what we do is if we want to keep heading 2, we simply right click and modify. and change the formatting from Calibri size 13 to Calibri size 11 and make it automatic, which means black, and click OK. Also, heading 3, we're going to right click, modify. Again, set the font size to 11, make the colour automatic, and click OK. So now you've got a top level heading followed by 2 levels of paragraph text, the 1.1s, the 1.1.1s and so on. And the point is, it's the same method whether it's headings or paragraphs. Number 16. When I type dash space or asterisk space, Word no longer creates a new bullet point. What have I missed? Let's take a look at a quick example. There's an old shortcut in Word where if you type dash followed by space, it converts that to a bullet. So whatever you type next and you press enter, see how it's creating a simple bullet list using dashes as the bullets. You can also press asterisk followed by space, and that gives you the conventional looking bullet that you're used to seeing. It's the same as if you click the single level bullet icon at the top here. Now, if they don't appear like this, there's a reason. So here's a very hidden away setting. I'll show you it quickly. On the File tab, and then Options down the bottom, I'm going to choose Proofing on the left panel, Autocorrect Options, and then click the Auto Format as you type tab. And if you look down here where it says Automatic Bulleted Lists, if that's ticked as it is now, you can press dash space or asterisk space and it will create those bullets automatically. But if for some reason it's unticked, let's do that and let's click OK all the way back in. If I start off with an asterisk space, see how it just doesn't convert anything. Or if I do a dash space, it doesn't convert into a bullet. So if that's what's happening, that's the reason why. Who knows how that setting got turned off, but that's where you go to switch it back on. Number 17. How do I start a new list from 1 rather than continuing from the previous list? Here's an example that has 3 levels of multi-level numbering in the first section and a second section which hasn't been styled yet. So if you place the cursor here and just apply heading 1 and then select these 2 here and apply heading 2, the question says, how would I restart this from number 1, not continue to number 2? Well, very simply, if you right click any number in your sequence, could be anywhere in your document, there's an option that says restart at 1. Conversely, if you find that something's reset to 1 and it should have actually continued the numbering, there's a sister function here called continue numbering. So whichever one of those you need to click, when you choose it, that affects the numbering, and then anything that follows that will fall into sequence as it should. Number 18. How do I control the indent for the text under the headings? I don't want my text to automatically start at the margin. Now the context here isn't completely clear, so I'm going to provide 3 scenarios. Firstly, if you have a long heading but it's all one paragraph and you're worried about the indentation of the second line onwards, the hanging line if you like, then here's what to do. You can see that this is currently styled by heading 1, which means that the hanging indent is actually controlled by the text indentat within your multi-level numbering definition. So if you go to the top here, click the multi-level list icon, define new multi-level list, and check the setting down the bottom for level 1. Okay, so the text indentat, 0.76 centimeters, that's the current indent, and that applies to the first line and the second line onwards. Let's click OK there. Now the second scenario is where you have a heading that is styled by heading 1 or something similar, followed by an unnumbered paragraph, like a regular paragraph. So if you want to control the indentation of this paragraph text and actually start it so it starts underneath where heading starts, that's simply controlled by placing the cursor at the beginning and pressing your tab key. Or you can use your indent key as well at the top here. So both of those will use the standard tab stop positions, which is 1.27 centimeters, a ½ inch, or a ¼ inch, which is what the 0.76 is referring to. If you've done one of those 2 things and it's not lining up still, what you do is you go to the launcher in your paragraph group, and just where it says left and right, so the left position, that controls the indent. And if the paragraph is a long one that goes onto a second or third line, you need to make sure that under special, it says hanging. And again, you set it by 1.27 or whatever measurement you want. Generally, that'd be the same. And that way, long paragraphs are also taken care of. If you don't set it to hanging, if you just leave it as the default, which is none, then the second line onwards will jump back to the left margin and it looks pretty awful. Let me click cancel here. And the third example is where you have a top level heading, which is heading 1, and then a numbered paragraph underneath, which could be based on heading 2 or heading 3 or another style of your choice. So we've covered this in a previous frequently asked question, but for this numbered paragraph, let's say you reuse heading 2 for the purpose of numbered paragraphs, in which case it's the text indent at figure again that sets the indent here. Number 19. Why is Word so incredibly buggy and unpredictable? WordPerfect was far better, far easier to format and more intuitive. You wouldn't believe how many comments and questions I get along this theme. I love WordPerfect, it's been wonderful. Now, I remember WordPerfect, and I actually used another program which was the same kind of vintage called WordStar, where we physically had to put in little characters to make a bit of text bold either side of the bolded word and things like that. I think WordPerfect is one level above that. But the fact is, WordPerfect really is like a footnote in history now. Word is the program that everyone uses. That's what you have to get used to, bugs and everything. Sorry to break it to you. And finally, number 20, how can I keep alignment and positioning of text consistent within a table? Now this is an interesting one. It's good to finish on this. This has got a bit of meat to it. Within a table, there's actually an order of precedence, a pecking order if you like. So any text, the font, table and paragraph settings within a cell takes the lowest precedence. The style definitions, if there are any, within the table are next level up. Those settings will supersede any straightforward text settings. However, if you've got number definitions, like multi-level list number definitions, any settings there will supersede the style definitions. They trump everything. So let me give you an example. At the moment, this is sample text. It's using the normal style, so nothing's been formatted. If I go to the paragraph launcher and go to the left indentation, maybe just set this to 1 centimeter and click OK, you can see it's jumped across to the 1 centimeter position. If I click the heading 1 to apply the heading 1 style here, and let's do the same thing. So let's click the launcher in the paragraph group, change the indentation to 1 centimeter on the left and click OK. That also has jumped across at this point. So if I now click the heading 1 to reapply the heading 1 style, you see how it jumps back to 0. And that tells you that any settings within a style definition override direct font or paragraph settings that you might change up here. But it goes one stage further. So let me modify the heading 1 definition here and go to the format button down here and click paragraph. And then set the spacing on the left hand side to maybe 2 centimeters and click OK. That's indented the text 2 centimeters at this point. But let's make this part of a multi-level numbered sequence. So I'll go to the multi-level list icon at the top, choose define new multi-level list, and on level 1, which is where we're at, I'm going to set the text indent down the bottom to 3 centimeters. So this is the text that follows the number, and the number is going to be on the margin. So we click OK, and see how that has now jumped to 3 centimeters, even though in this heading 1 style definition, we set it to 2. The reason being that when you bring a multi-level list into play, any settings there supersede what's in the style definition. So that's how the pecking order works. And once you're aware of it, you can work with it. But if you don't know it exists, you drive yourself around in circles and you go at the wall. So that's it for this video. I hope you found some value amongst those 20 frequently asked questions. Hopefully your question has been answered. If it hasn't, as I said at the beginning, write your question, post it into the comments below, and I'll get back to you, and hopefully your question will also help somebody else. So until the next one, I'll see you then.